There's been a lot in the news lately about taxing the rich, and I'm here to say that's a really horrible idea, especially if you actually want to collect some taxes. And the reason for that is because our government is drunk on tax receipts. Our small island is one of the highest tax countries in the whole world. So I'm going to talk you through that, as well as give you what I think is my solution for a better tax system for Australians. Let's first take a look at this graph. This is a map of the world, and it's color-coded into high tax rates and low tax rates. So darker blue colors are higher tax rates, whereas yellow and green and those sorts of colors are lower tax rates. Look at Australia down here by itself in one of the darker blue colors. So our top personal tax rate is 45%. Add 2%, it's 47%. And we're in the company of countries like China, 45%. Finland's a bit higher, 57%. Sweden, 52%. But let's look at some comparable countries. So Canada, 33%. And United States, 37%. But if you switch to the corporate taxation, nothing much changes. We are still up in those darker blue countries that are taxing our companies at some of the highest rates in the world. So we've established that we have really high tax rates in Australia. But how much tax are we collecting and who are we collecting that from? The majority of tax is actually collected from individuals in Australia. So this is a graph, and I'll make all these links available in this description. This is a graph showing how much tax is collected from different types of taxpayers in Australia. This orange section here is personal income tax. So you can see that's tax on individuals. So you can see that blue section there is almost double the size of what's being collected from companies. So last year, December 2024, 77 billion of income tax was collected just from individuals in Australia. Now, what makes this worse is something called bracket creep. So we have set personal income tax rates at different levels. These were changed recently as part of the new government, but they're not indexed, which means each year they don't move up a little bit in line with inflation. And what that effectively does is if you generally get a pay rise, if you have a good boss, hopefully you get a pay rise each year, at least in line with inflation. So that pushes you into higher income tax brackets without actually getting the benefit from that. And it's called bracket creep. Let me show you another graph. This is a graph showing how individuals are pushed into the second highest tax bracket and the highest tax bracket over the years. So you can see by these green bars, each and every year for at least the last 3 to 4 years, more and more people are being pushed into that second highest tax bracket. And if you look at the trend of that, it's only going one way, and that's up. Same with the blue squares. It's a little bit less, people being pushed into that top marginal rate, but again, it's on an upward trend. What about the amount of tax actually collected from Australians? That's not good news either. This graph shows total tax collected from everyone throughout the years. Let's look at the last 4 to 5 years. It's only going one way, and that is up. Total tax collected, $801 billion in 2024. So our very small nation, very small country compared to the rest of the world, has some of the highest tax rates on individuals and corporations. We are being pushed into those higher tax brackets each and every year through something called bracket creep. And just the overall number of tax receipts collected from Australians is going up and up and up. I say it again, our government is drunk on tax receipts. They are too spoilt with tax receipts. Now, what I think it ultimately boils down to, which could be improved, is this. This is the highest personal income tax rate in Australia, and that is 47%. We also have, this is the lowest. There's a tax-free threshold. So for the first $18,000, you basically don't pay any tax on that. So we compare those two, that's quite a gap. But let's ignore that. Let's use the company tax rate, which is 25% for small businesses or 30% for larger companies. So the highest tax rate for individuals, 47%, compared to a 30% corporate tax rate. That's a differential of 17%. Now, I don't care if you are the richest person in the world or one of the poorest people in the world. No one will ever voluntarily pay an extra 17% in tax. It just won't happen.
I am not evading tax in any way, shape or form. Now, of course I am minimising my tax, and if anybody in this country doesn't minimise their tax, they want their heads read. Because as a government, I can tell you're not spending it that well that we should be donating extra.
And with the news articles recently around trusts and using companies and structures to avoid tax, this is what I think needs to happen. So long as there is a large gap between a low tax rate and a high tax rate in Australia, there'll always be tax planning. As long as that gap is really large, there'll always be tax planning and those sorts of things. Because at the moment, when you're saving yourself 17% tax, people will jump through those hoops to do that. They'll set up trusts, they'll set up companies, they'll set up agreements. They'll go through all that hassle because they're saving themselves 17%. If the gap between those two rates reduced quite substantially and you were saving yourself less of a tax benefit from jumping through all those hoops, then I think you have less people worrying about it, because the benefit you would get relative to all the effort and hassle you would have to go into it wouldn't be worth it anymore. So for me, I think the higher personal income tax rates needs to reduce quite substantially. And by reducing that gap between the highest rate and the lower rates or the corporate rates, I think the benefits of tax arbitrage will reduce. You'll still get the people that would do it, absolutely. But the big benefit will reduce quite substantially. And then people will weigh up if they want to have all these expensive tax structures in place just to save themselves a small amount of tax. That's what I think needs to happen. And in doing that, by reducing the tax arbitrage, you may actually collect a little bit more tax from individuals. This might be a controversial view. I want to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments below if you think I'm on the right track or if you think I'm full of it. Love to hear from you guys. And if you like finance content, make sure you head over to my channel where I've got a whole host of videos on investing, on taxes, on how to save money on your home loan. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next video.